Hi, welcome to another episode of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is just all of the new toys that I purchased since the last video I posted about a week ago. So I don't have a ton of stuff to show you, but the stuff I have is pretty cool. So hopefully you enjoy that. And at the end, I'm going to talk about music a little bit. I do like to talk about music on this channel a little bit because I'm, as well as being a toy nerd, I am also a bit of a music nerd. So yeah, if you're interested in talking about music, then stay tuned till the very end. But yeah, so I've got a couple of toys that I picked up locally, just here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, where I'm from. So I'll talk about those first. We'll flip the camera and I'll show you them in some detail in a second. But here, I'll just quickly grab them. So I picked up this Leonardo from the live-action 1990 Ninja Turtles movie. So this is produced by NECA. And yeah, so I was pretty happy to find this guy. So we'll pop him open and we'll take a look at him in a second. And another cool toy I found, and I got this from Strange Adventures, which is my one of the local comic book shops here, but this is my go-to shop, the one where I pick up my comic books every week. And I got this guy. So this is a Filmation style Beast Man from Masters of the Universe. It's based on the old 80s cartoon. And yeah, I'll talk about him a little bit more in a second. I'm actually not going to pop this guy open. I'm going to opt to leave him carded. I don't often do that. I do like to open up everything, as you can see behind me, but at the same time, you'll notice there's a couple of choice things back there that I leave in the card, just because I like to be able to peg them up for display. And with Beastman here, one of the other carded figures I have is this jumbo-sized version of the vintage Beastman figure. So since I've got him just kind of up on display, I kind of thought this would be a nice little companion piece to keep with him. Anyway, we'll take a closer look at him in a second as well. And after that, we'll take a look at some purchases that I picked up while I was away this weekend. So I'm recording this on Monday. It's a long weekend here in Canada because it's our Thanksgiving. So yeah, I don't have to go to work today, which is nice. But yeah, on Friday, we left to go up to Cape Breton, which is like an island at the north end of Nova Scotia here, about 4 to 5 hour drive from where I live. And the reason we were up there for the weekend was because mine and my wife Vanessa, our good friends Cheryl and Brandon, were getting married. I know they watch, which is really cool. So thank you so much, Cheryl and Brandon, for watching. And congratulations again. It was a lovely ceremony. We had a great time. The reception was a lot of fun. I hope you don't mind. I'll throw up some pictures here that I just stole off your guys' Facebook. I hope you don't mind me sharing them with the world. But yeah, thank you so much again for having us. It was a great time. Despite the fact that some of your cousins tried to beat up my wife at the end of the night, Cheryl, but that's okay. That's pretty typical in Cape Breton, I think, from what I understand. But yeah, while I was in Cape Breton, I have a round of places that I like to check in there. They have a comic book shop downtown, and they also have a really cool kind of collectibles store. It's like a record. They sell records, DVDs, action figures, and various other collectibles. It's called Atomic Records and Collectibles. So yeah, I went in there, which was great. And then I also swung by the mall and picked up a couple things there as well. So we'll talk about all that stuff. And then I'll talk about a little bit of music at the end. All right, so let's dive right in and take a closer look at Leonardo. Okay, so here's another quick look at Leonardo inside the box. So you'll see here, it's just a big window box packaging showing off the figure there and his accessories. There's a little picture from the movie, which was like the movie poster or something on the front. And then on the other sides of the packaging, there's just some like action shots of the figure itself, as well as like a little bio. So there you go. Now let's pop this guy open and take a look at him. All right, so here is Leonardo from the live action movie outside of the packaging. And he is pretty cool. Like, the sculpting and the paintwork on this guy are phenomenal, I would say. Like, he looks exactly how I remember him from the live action movie. Like, just the detail on his skin there. There's multiple colors in there. The little, like, spots that look like little, like, almost blemishes on his skin. Like, it all looks really good. And not that I'm complaining about the price of this figure, because he was like $30. But this thing looks so nice that I feel they could have probably charged more. Like, if you told me that this was a $50 figure, I would totally expect to pay that for a figure of this quality, just because you can see the care that they put into the paint job and the accessories. The likeness is just spot on. Like you can see there, the detail in his shell. Again, multiple colors, lots of sculpted detail. Same as with the sheaths there. There's at least 3 different colors of brown for the twine and the tape. As far as articulation goes, like he's a little stiff because I just opened him up, but it looks like he's got double jointed knees, articulated at the ankles, articulated at the legs. Not sure how much movement there. Again, I don't want to force anything because he's a little stiff right now. A decent bend at the elbow, swivel as well as a joint at the wrist. Spins around pretty good. You can look down, you can look up. Ball jointed shoulders. No sort of swivel at the waist or anywhere in the torso there, but that's kind of to be expected with a Ninja Turtle. But yeah, I think he looks awesome. And as far as accessories go, he had 2 additional hands, both these kind of, I guess, karate chop kind of hands. So he's got 2 of those. He also came with a pizza slice. So that's always a nice little accessory to have with a Ninja Turtle figure. And then he also came with this extra bandana bow. So I guess if maybe you don't want that kind of windswept to the side look, you could plug this in and maybe have it just hang like that. I don't know. That seems to be going above and beyond. I don't know if that's really necessary, but I guess it's cool to have the option to change it up if you want. So yeah, this thing is great. And you might remember just a couple of videos ago, I showed you another Ninja Turtle figure from NECA. I bought this Leonardo. And this Leonardo is based on the animated series. And I thought this was pretty much as good as you can get as far as Ninja Turtle figures go. It looks exactly like the cartoon. It's so much better than the toys they've given us, you know, that Playmates had made for us all those years from the 80s and into the 90s and the 2000s. I just really liked the quality of this figure, the accessories it came with. Like, it looks awesome, and you would think, well, maybe this is the last Leonardo I ever need. And Leonardo is my favorite turtle, so I only bought this one. But once I got him open and reviewed him for you guys, I realized just how good a figure it was. So I went out and I bought the other 3 guys. Now, I kind of had the same experience with this Leonardo. I saw these guys, they had all 4 of them, and it wasn't as much of a price commitment as these guys were, because these guys were all in 2 packs. So Leonardo came with Shredder, and then the other 3 guys came with Krang and 2 foot soldiers. So each box set was about $60. Now these guys, only the 4 turtles are available, and they're $30 each. So I saw them, I thought they looked great, but I was like, you know what? I just bought these turtles. They cost me $120. I'll just get my favorite turtle, Leo. That's really all I need. But now that I've got them open, I'm just so impressed with this thing. And yeah, sure, this is the ultimate animated Leonardo figure. But as far as the live action look goes, and I loved those live action movies, at least the first one was amazing, that, yeah, this looks great. I see it basically no flaws with this thing. And now I'm thinking I might need to go back and try and find the other 3. Hopefully they still all have them. At the very least, I got to get Donatello, who was always my second favorite. But yeah, this is a very nice figure. So if you were on the fence about these, because maybe you already had these and you didn't think you needed another Leonardo, I'm telling you now that you do. So next up, I've got Beast Man from the Masters of the Universe. So as I mentioned earlier, this one here is based on his appearance in the TV show that was produced by Filmation in the 80s. So we'll get a good look at him here. So you can see from the detail on him, there's very little detail on him. Like everything is very smooth. Like this is supposed to be his like fur collar, and there's no sculpted detail for fur or anything like that. And that's because that would have been too difficult to animate. They had to keep the character models relatively simple to produce the animation, and that's what this look is based on. So my favorite Masters of the Universe character growing up was Merman. And this here is the vintage Merman toy from the 80s. So you'll see here, he's got this kind of, I don't know how you would describe this, almost cat-like face with these kind of cat ears at the top. And yeah, he's got very limited articulation. He doesn't bend at the knees or the elbows. His shoulders just go up and down. His head from side to side. There's no looking up or down. There's no ball joints, anything like that. So this was my favorite character. However, he didn't look very much like he did in the cartoon, because in the cartoon, he looked like this. Now, I don't know why it was so radically different, because I would say the toy probably came first. So I can understand, as with Beast Man, they had to simplify the design for it to work for the animation, but I don't know why his whole head design had to change. Anyway, when Mattel brought back the Masters of the Universe Classics line in the kind of late 2000s, what they did is they gave 6-inch, really good articulated figures based on the vintage toys. So here is the Classics Merman. So you can see the similarities to the vintage toy. He's got the same style head. He's got very similar armor. You know, he's clearly based on that toy. And then when Super 7 took over the license from Mattel in doing the Masters of the Universe Classics figures, they decided to do a subline based specifically on the 80s Filmation cartoon. And so that's why we got this Merman figure. So you can see this one here looks like the animated image that I showed you. So that's the complete kind of evolution of Merman. Now with Beast Man, I don't have the actual vintage figure to show you, but I had the jumbo-sized version, which I already showed you. But this is exactly what the vintage Beast Man looked like, except he was this size. Now the reason I don't have the vintage one is because my brother Doug had that when we were growing up. But that's what he looked like. So nothing like the animated series. You know, he's quite a bit different as far as his facial design. This one looks much more like a gorilla, and there's a lot more kind of sculpted hair and fur details within him. So that's what the vintage Beast Man looked like. And the classics version of Beast Man looked like this. So again, you can see that he's got kind of the same kind of design as the vintage figure. So then they did a Filmation Classics figure of Beast Man, just like this. Unfortunately, it was one of the first ones that was made in this animated line, and it sold out very quickly, and I missed my opportunity to get them. So as much as I would have liked the animated Beast Man in the 6-inch detailed style, I didn't get them, which kind of bummed me out. But then Super 7 decided to do, I would almost call it a step backwards, or maybe kind of a more nostalgic toy line, and decided to go take this look, the animated look, but go back to the vintage kind of squatty, limited articulation figure. So now you can get a merman that kind of looks like this, but in this size. I haven't bought it yet, and I don't know if I will, because I kind of view it as just an inferior version of this figure, and I don't really feel I need it. However, since I missed out on this version of Beast Man, I decided that I would get the kind of retro throwback style of Beast Man, and that's what we've got here. So I could open this figure up and maybe display him with, maybe display him with my other vintage He-Man figures. But since I have the jumbo version of Beast Man still carded, I think this figure might look good just pinned up next to him. And also, I have read online that there are some quality control issues with these Super 7 vintage style figures. You'll see right at the top of the packaging there, it says this is for adult collectors. It's not a children's toy that can take the same amount of abuse as these toys did back in the 80s. And it's not that I expected to take this thing out to the sandbox and play with it, but I don't really want to risk opening it up and then having its legs break off or something. So that is why I've opted to keep Beastman in his package. But I think he's going to be a really nice display piece. And yeah, I think he looks really cool. Now here is the first of my purchases from my road trip to Sydney. Now this here is Refractor from the Transformers Siege line. And I got this from the comic book shop right downtown in Sydney. Now, if you watched my previous video, you know I've been looking for this guy for a couple of weeks. I've been really excited about him ever since he was first announced. But a couple of months have passed since then. But just a couple of weeks ago, I got the two other figures that are in the same wave as him. I got Brunt and Red Alert. But Refractor wasn't at the store when I got those two. But knowing that they were available and in my area, I've been hunting for him every time I leave the house. And it's been very frustrating not being able to find him. Anyway, so I was pretty stoked to find him at the comic shop. Now you'll see here, so I ended up paying $34.99 for him, which is a little bit more than I would have liked to have spent because I buy most of my Transformers these days at EB Games. And he would have cost me $26.99 there. So I did pay a premium for him. However, every time I go to Sydney, I try to visit this comic shop, and even if I don't find anything I was really looking for, I try to buy something. Like it's a small shop in a small town, and I like to support them when I have the opportunity. So I didn't really mind shelling out some extra cash to pick up this figure that I've been anxiously awaiting. So yeah, there he is inside the packaging. You'll see here that he transforms into, I don't know, some sort of spaceship hovercraft thing. But that's nonsense. What Refractor actually transforms into is a camera. But the thing is, it says collect 3 to build. So what you're seeing here is 3 Refractors all kind of folded up beside one another and plugged together to make that camera. So you need to buy this exact same figure 3 times in order to build the camera. But we'll talk about that a little bit more once I open them up. So let's do that now. Alright, so here is Refractor outside of the packaging. So he comes with 2 accessories. He comes with, I guess this, which is his gun, which I suppose can be held like so. And then he also comes with this piece here. I guess you could use it as a shield. So I guess that's kind of cool. But if you did buy this figure 3 times, then these would make a, I guess, complete circle, which would be like the lens of the camera. So I'm super happy about this figure. As I said, I was excited about him for a long time because there's a kind of a long, weird history with this particular character. So when people think Transformers, you usually think about robots that turn into cars and airplanes. But the original Transformers line that came out in 1984 was actually made up of multiple different toy lines from Japan that weren't connected over there. That's why you had all these weird shapes and different transformations that don't really seem to go together. You've got the guys that turns into the cars and the jets, but you also have guys that turn into dinosaurs and bugs, and guys that turn into cassette players and guns and cameras. So Refractor is from one of those lines, like Soundwave. I'm not sure if they were from the exact same Japanese toy line, but probably so. And so yeah, the vintage one turned into a camera. And the thing is, there was 3 different guys. Now, back in those days, he was called Reflector. That's what he's always been called. The change to Refractor, I think, just came with this Siege line. I think this is the first time he's been called Refractor. And that was probably just for some licensing issues, like Hasbro probably lost the rights to the name Reflector. So now we're calling him Refractor. But I've always known this character as Reflector. But really, Reflector is the name of all three guys. The three guys have individual names, which are Spectro, Spyglass, and Viewfinder. And they all looked identical to one another, except one guy had this circle in his chest, and the other two guys didn't. And with this figure here, you can remove that, and so now he looks like the other two guys. So if I were to buy this figure 3 times, I would display 2 of them like this, and 1 of them like this, and then that would match up to how Reflector appeared in the classic cartoon, in which he appeared quite a bit. He was one of the original Decepticons, and he was featured in most of the early episodes, even though he didn't necessarily have a lot to do. He was one of those characters that was always in the background. He always kind of filled up the space. Sometimes he actually appeared more than 3 times, so you'd have like 6 or 7 Spectros standing in one shot. But he never appeared very much in the vintage comic book. So the funny thing is, the toy, for whatever reason, it didn't come out in 1984 like you would have expected. It actually didn't come out until 86, 87, and even then it was only a mail-away toy. So if you bought another Transformer, it would have a little coupon inside to say, save up some points and send some UPC codes or whatever, and you could get Reflector. Now, I don't know why they did that, because he was, in the cartoon, a heavily featured character. And, but yeah, for whatever reason, they never released him. I never had him. I didn't even know how to get him. I didn't realize he was a mail away. If I even had those coupons, I've long since forgotten about it. And it's possible they weren't even packaged with Canadian Transformers. He might have only been available in the States. So I just knew there was this camera character, but I didn't really know much more about him. I didn't know why there was no toy. And the toy, as far as colors go, didn't look anything like the character as he appeared in the cartoon. Because in the cartoon, they all had these colors. The purple and the green kind of plate on the chest. But when the toy came out, they were 3 different colors. And they looked like this here. So when this version of Refractor was finally announced, I would have actually have liked to seen them diversify him a little bit, maybe give him some different head sculpts. But considering in the cartoon, they all look the same other than the removal of this one circle, it makes sense that they would release it this way. Because if they released it in a 3-pack, there's probably a lot of people that wouldn't want to bother having to buy the same figure 3 times. But by doing it this way with the removable centerpiece, if you were a fan and you wanted to buy it 3 times, you could. And that's what I thought I was probably going to do. However, shortly after this was announced, and before I bought this, they announced that there would be kind of a special edition online exclusive version of Refractor released in a 3-pack, and he would be painted in the colors of the vintage toy, and he would also have additional pieces to help it appear even more like the vintage toy. So I've already got a pre-order in for that, so I will have 3 more versions of this toy, so it's essentially the same thing, just with some different colors. And I could have maybe just left it there. That way I'd have all 3 guys, and I would have Reflector. But I really like this look and how it matches up with the old animated look. So I got that one too. Now, I'm not going to buy 3 of this and end up with 6 different versions of this toy. But who knows? If I ever saw them on sale, I would consider it, because I think it looks so good. Like, it's a simple figure, and if you don't know the history of the character or have any attachment to him, you might think he is rather uninteresting, but I just think it looks great, and it looks so close to the original animated model that, yeah, this is maybe my favorite figure from the Siege line thus far. So the next purchase I made in Sydney, Cape Breton, was a Star Wars one. So these figures that you see here are all from the vintage Star Wars line that launched in 1978. And these guys are all aliens that were featured in the cantina scene in the very first Star Wars movie. So these characters, well, Greedo, he actually had some lines and his name was given. But these other 2 guys, they were just kind of nameless characters. They didn't speak in the movie, although he grunted a few times, I guess. But they didn't really have names. And so when the toys came out, they just kind of made up names that seemed appropriate. So this guy was called Walrus Man. This guy was Hammerhead. And then this, of course, is Greedo. And these guys are three of the coolest looking Star Wars aliens, I would say. I love them all, but Walrus Man is my all-time favorite Star Wars character. Partly because this is one of the Star Wars toys I owned as a kid. It's one of the first action figures I ever had. I just love the look of them. You know, as cool as like Luke Skywalker and Han Solo are and stuff. I just love monsters. I love sea creatures. And even though this doesn't look anything like how Walrus Man appeared in the movie, none of these are all that accurate to the movie appearances, actually. But I love these classic figures. And so these are the ones I've had, at least Walrus Man. He's the one I had since my childhood. These two I didn't have as a kid because my brother Doug had them, but I acquired them since. And yeah, I love them all. I love the look of these vintage toys. Now, in the more modern Star Wars figures that have come out, they've updated all these characters to look more accurate to how they appeared on screen. So we got this Walrus Man. And we got this Hammerhead. And we got this Greedo. So I like these versions too, and I like that they're accurate how the characters appeared on screen. But especially in the case of Walrus Man, it's pretty drastically different, and I still like this look, but I don't think he would have been my all-time favorite Star Wars character if that's what the toy looked like when I was a kid. I really liked the way this toy looked. And if you watched a video I did a little while ago, me and my friend Andrew went through what we thought the top 10 toys in our entire collections were, and I named this Walrus Man as my number 3 figure. So I think very highly of it. Regardless of that doesn't look like how the character looked in the movie, I just love this toy. And you've probably seen it behind me in most of the footage where I'm filming myself. I've got a 12-inch jumbo-sized version of that figure pinned up on the wall behind me in most of the videos. Anyway, so when I went to Atomic Records and Collectibles, they have got a ton of Funko Pop figurines. I think they must have more than I've seen anywhere else. And if you go into some of these EB game stores and stuff, they have a ton of them. All my local comic shops have a ton of them. But I still think Atomic Records has them beat. When I go in there, I always see stuff that I haven't seen anywhere else yet. They seem to get it first. They seem to maybe get more copies because they hold on to them longer. Anyway, they've got a ton of stuff, and it's so overwhelming because they're just like stacked so deep. It would take me all day to flick through everything they have. If you're a Funko Pop collector, I highly recommend you go there. Anyway, so when I was there last time, a few months ago, they had some Funko Pops of these 3 characters. So I see Walrus Man, Hammerhead, and Greedo. So let me just get these guys out of here for a sec. And this was supposedly a Walmart exclusive. I'd never seen it at a Walmart before. But, so it's these 3 guys. And it was priced at $50. Which isn't crazy because these pop figures generally sell for, between $12 and $15 anyway. So at $15 a pop, you would have been looking at $45. You pay a little bit of a premium because it's an exclusive. So, not too bad. And I had it in my hand, and I was wondering, should I get this? And ultimately, I opted not to get it, partly because it was a little more than I was looking to spend that day. And as much as I like Walrus Man and Greedo, I was mostly buying the set as much as I like Hammerhead and Greedo, I was really buying it for Walrus Man. And so then I'm like, do I really want to drop $50 plus tax on a Walrus Man pop? And even though I own a lot of Funko Pops, I've probably got over 200 of these things by now, I don't typically buy any from Marvel or any from Star Wars. The reason for that is they are bobbleheads. Most of the other pop figures are not. And I assume it's some licensing issue because Hasbro makes so many Marvel and Star Wars action figures that Funko Pop wasn't able to make figurines, so they had to make them bobbleheads to make them different. So I don't like the bobble. So that's why I didn't get it. But anyway, I went back to Atomic Records this time, and they had the same set marked down to $30. I assume because the packaging is a little banged up here, which doesn't bother me at all because I open all this stuff up. But there you go. So I love that these figures are based on the vintage toys rather than the actual movie look. Because I don't think they've done that with other characters. But yeah, these guys, they went with Hammerhead and the blue onesie bathing suit rather than, the brown tunic. And Greedo's outfit too. It's much closer to just the solid green kind of weird spaceman outfit. So yeah, I love that they did that with these figures. And so now let's pop them open and take a look at them. So here they are out of the package, and you can see them bobbling away here. So that's where you can see the difference when it comes to the Star Wars and the Marvel guys, is they got that springy little head. And I don't know, some people might prefer that. It kind of drives me nuts. I just don't like bobbling. Hammerhead doesn't seem to bobble so much. Must be the shape of his head. But yeah, if I were to get any Star Wars character in a bobblehead or in a Funko Pop or any type of variation, it would be Walrus Man. This is the one guy that I like to buy in whatever format I find him in, just because I think he's so neat looking. And they do come on these display bases, which is another thing I don't typically like about the Star Wars Pops, because none of the other Funko Pops are display bases, even the Marvel ones don't. So they have the bobble, but Star Wars has the bobble and the display stand. Now, I do have one other Star Wars bobblehead, and that's the Porg from The Last Jedi. And when I got that as a Christmas present for my brother Brian, I realized that they came off of these bases. I didn't think they did. So that makes it a little more tolerable. Because I didn't like with the stands how they didn't match with any of the other Funkos in my collection. But knowing that you can take them off of the display base, I can live with the bobble. So, and to be perfectly honest, now that I have so many Pops and they're constantly falling over everywhere, I wish they all gave them really nice display bases like this. Some of them come with little clear stands, but they're not very consistent about it. And those stands, even then, are kind of weak. So yeah, these stands are actually great. I wish every Funko Pop had them. But anyway, so there you go. These are Greedo, Hammerhead, and Walrus Man. And I think they are adorable and awesome. So thank you, Atomic Records and Collectibles. And here's the last thing that I picked up while I was away. So this doesn't really count as an action figure, but it is a fun collectible. And even though it's kind of a complete waste of $20, I couldn't help myself. Me and Vanessa are both huge Office fans. We were both big fans of the British series when it first aired, and we were big fans of the American series when it first came out as well. And then when we met each other, that was one of the things we really bonded over, is our love of The Office. And to this day, we watch it like every week. It's on Netflix. It's just so easy to throw on because we always are in the mood for it. Sometimes she's not in the mood to watch a full movie. Sometimes we just don't want to watch an hour-long drama. The Office is it's great, and it's awesome. We love it. And I knew she'd be supportive of any Office-related collectible. Just earlier this year, just a couple months ago, I got all the Funko Pops from The Office. And, so when I went into Spencer's Gifts in the mall, which is just like a little novelty store, they sell, plastic dog poop and t-shirts and mugs and all kinds of stuff. They had all kinds of Office paraphernalia. So they had t-shirts and they had mugs. And I considered buying some of it, but I actually don't wear a lot of t-shirts, and I actually don't like mugs. So I almost didn't buy any Office paraphernalia. But then my friend Rob, who happens to be the manager of the Spencer's Gifts in Cape Breton, he said, "Oh, did you see these things?" And he showed me the Dundee Award. Okay, so here is the Dundee in all of its glory. It looks like a legit trophy. Very shiny little gold office worker on the top. A nice gold faceplate on the front. Yeah, even though I'm sure this is very cheap, it still has a decent weight to it. It doesn't just feel like a chunk of hollow, empty plastic. Yeah, pretty sure that's all plastic, not metal or anything, but it still got some weight to it. And the paint job gives it a nice shine. And yeah, I just think this is a really fun collectible. And it is going to go right upstairs on the mantle. So it's not going to be relegated to the man cave downstairs. Nope, it's going upstairs where all can see. So there you go. The Dundee. Okay, so those are my new purchases from the past week or so. And now I want to get into the music section a little bit here. So where I'm from in Halifax, we have a handful of bands that come out of here and make it big. One of the bands that should have made it a lot bigger is a band called Thrush Hermit. They were around when I was in high school. They weren't much older than me, really. And yeah, they were an awesome band. And they put out just a couple of records and a couple of EPs. But I was a huge fan of them. And they kind of disbanded, I don't know, probably right around 2000, maybe even a little bit before that. And one of the singers, because they're one of these bands where they had three different frontmen, both guitarists and the bass player, they all kind of took turns on vocals and whatever. But their main vocalist, Joel Plaskett, he went off on a solo career. And depending on where you're from, if you're not Canadian, chances are you probably don't know who Joel Plaskett is either. But he's achieved a pretty good level of success here in Canada, especially in my province of Nova Scotia. He's kind of like our Bruce Springsteen here. He's, just kind of a fixture. He's always playing these big concerts on, like, say, Canada Day or, things like that. And he's got a huge following. So his solo stuff is great. I highly recommend you check out both Thrush Hermit and Joel Plaskett on YouTube. There's lots of stuff out there to watch. Hey Casey, do you want to hear an interesting little side note about Joel Plaskett? Is back when I worked at Blockbuster, one day Joel Plaskett came in, I had to set him up with a brand new membership. But yeah, as great as Joel is on his own, I was a bigger fan of Thrush Hermit. Thrush Hermit was a little heavier, and I kind of liked the diversity of having the different singers. So I think it was 9 or 10 years ago, they got back together for a reunion show, which was fantastic. It was a 2-night reunion. I was there for both nights. Really enjoyed it. Figured that would be the last time I would ever get to see Thrush Hermit play. But then just the other week, they did another reunion show. And again, it sold out so quickly that they had to add a second night. Again, now I didn't go to both nights this time around, but I did go to the Saturday night show, and it was excellent. So I've got some video here that I'll share with you. If you're, never heard of Thrush Hermit, I hope you check it all out and enjoy it, and then maybe dive into their catalog and check them out on Spotify and on YouTube and whatnot. And if you're already a fan, and maybe you were even at the show, I'm glad I have some footage here to share with you. Now, I actually didn't shoot any of this video myself because my phone sucks. So just like when I shared some video footage from the Bush concert I was at a couple of weeks ago, all this footage comes from either my wife Vanessa or my buddy Miguel.
We drove around in a van. We spent some time in some city. Went to Seattle, Rocky Mountain, and the Potato State. But how do you feel when you're being on the field? Swung in the frozen face. Fame is all I've got. I will get by.
So that was Thrush Hermit. Thanks to Vanessa and Miguel for filming at the show there, so I could share that with you guys. And hopefully if you've made it this far into the episode, you liked what you heard. So yeah, be sure to go check out Thrush Hermit and Joel Plaskett. And actually you can check out some of the other guys have done some side projects as well. Rob Benvey had a solo album out. Camouflage Nights was another side project that was a lot of fun. Anyway, yeah, so go dig deep and find all that stuff. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching. Again, thank you to Brandon and Cheryl for watching and for having us up for your wedding in Cape Breton. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please like below, subscribe to the channel, and please leave me any comments. I'm happy to talk either toys or music. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.